Okay, we are holding in Hey Amud Bet. We're starting from Hey Amud Aleph on the bottom, last line. Tani Tana Kamed Rabbi Yochanan. The Tana said in front of Rabbi Yochanan, Kol haosek b'Torah b'gmilut chasadim. Anyone who learns Torah and gmilut chasadim and does chesed, vekover et banav, and going to bury his children, Hashem yirachem, mochalim lo al kol avonotav. They're going to forgive all of his sins. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Bishlama, I can understand Torah v'gmilut chasadim, that it's a condition to be for the sins to be forgiven. Tichtiv b'chesed, which is gmilut chasadim, ve'emet yechupar avon. Chesed means gmilut chasadim, doing chasadim. Shenemar, the pasuk says, rodef tzedakah v'chesed, everyone who would chase tzedakah and chesed, yimtza chaim tzedakah v'chavod. You should find chaim in tzedakah and honor. Emet it's Torah, zu Torah, shenemar emet kana ve'al timkor. Somebody you purchase emet and don't sell it. That's a Torah. Ela koveret banav minayin. How do we know somebody going to bury his children that it's a good sign for him to be all of the sins to be forgiven? Ta'an Alehu Saba, that old guy said it, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, by the name of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Ati Avon Avon. We have a gezerah shava, similar two words appear in two different locations, which is teaching to each other. Ktiv Acha, it said over here, by Gmilut Chasadim, Bechesed ve'emet, Yechupar Avon. With Chesed and Emet, a sin will be forgiven. Ktiv Atam, it said over there, Umeshalem Avon Avot al Chek Beneel. Is going to pay the sin of the fathers through their children. So you have the word Avon by Chesed and Emet, which is by Gmilut Chasadim and Torah. And we have the word Avon when children are Hashem paying the children for the sins. So just like over here, we'll be forgiving all of the sins. Same thing when a children of a person dying, his sins will be forgiven. A new thing. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Negaim ubanim. If somebody has leprosy, tzarat, and losing children, enan yesurim shel ahava. It's not considered suffering of love. The Gemara says, Venegaim lo, a tzarat, leprosy, it's not considered suffering of love. V'atanya, the Braita says very clear, Kol mi sheyesh bo achat me'arba marot negaim alalu. Anyone who have one of the four types of tzarat, of leprosy, enan ela mizbeach kapara. Is considered the mizbeach for kapara for him. So isn't that means that it's also meaning mizbeach kapara means mizbeach kapara u'da'avu? It's only considered as kapara. Yisurim shel ahava lo avu. It's not considered suffering of love. It's only considered yisurim shel ahava. No, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I'm wrong. That's the answer. That's the answer. The question was, it's considered mizbeach kapara. We assume it's that's also if it's kapara, it's a suffering of love. The Gemara answer lo. Mizbeach kapara avu. It's really only mizbeach kapara. That's answer one. Yisurim shel ahava lo avu, but suffering for love, it is not considered. My second answer, halan vehaleu. Depends. In Eretz Israel, when somebody gets tzaraat and being sent out of the camp, in Eretz Israel, somebody is tameh, need to be sent out of the city. So over there is not considered suffering of love. But in Chutz La'aretz, nobody going to be sent out anywhere. Having leprosy, having tzaraat, it will be suffering of love. Another answer, abetzina, abefaresia. It all depends where it's located. If it's located betzina on a hidden place, that's yisurim shel ahava, suffering of love. You're just suffering, nobody knows. But if it's in a exposed place, lo naim, fadichot, everybody sees them with the tzaraat, but that would not be suffering of love. The Gemara question, ubanim, lo, banim, it's not considered suffering of love? Echidami, what's the case? If the case that children, somebody has no children because he had children and then died, on that you refer that it's not considered suffering of love. V'amar Rabbi Yochanan said, then grama de asir rabir. He had, when people used to pass, when Hashem yirachem, when people had lost their children, he used to visit them, a shiva call to comfort them, and he used to bring the bone, the last bone. He said, this is the bone of my 10th child that I lost. So all of the children died, and he had only, so he used to bring the bone to comfort people. Look, I had 10 who I lost. So Rabbi Yochanan obviously was a huge tzaddik. Must be that the suffering that he has losing the children was suffering of love. So if the case of somebody had children, he lost them, is not going to be suffering of love, we have a problem from this story. Rabbi Yochanan, it must be that it was suffering of love. The Gemara answer, Ela, ha de lo avu leklal. When we say that it's not suffering of love, somebody who had no children at all, that's considered suffering, not out of love. Ve'ha de avu lemetu. Somebody who had children and they died, that will be considered suffering of love. Continuing to the story of suffering. Rabbi Chia bar Abba Chalash, he was sick. Ale gabe Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan came to visit him. Amar lei chavivim alecha yisurin. Do you appreciate the yisurim, the suffering? Amar lo, אמא שלך, לא אין ולא שכרן. I don't want the yisurim, I don't want the reward. Leave me alone. Amar lo, אב לי ידך, give me your hand. Yav li yadei, he gave him his hand on his bed. Ve'ok meihen, he got him up. Now you're healthy. No more suffering. Similar story. Rabbi Yochanan Chalash. So who got up Rabbi Chia bar Abba? Was Rabbi Yochanan. Now Rabbi Yochanan got sick. Rabbi Yochanan Chalash, he was sick. Ale gabe Rabbi Chanina. Somebody else went to visit him, Rabbi Chanina. Amar le, chavivim alecha yisurim. Do you appreciate yisurim? Baruch Hashem. You have yisurim. Amar lo, lo en, velo scharam. Neither them, neither the reward. Amar lo, av li yadcha. Give me your hand. Yav li yadei, he gave him his hand. Ve'ok mein, he got him up out of the yisurim. The Gemara says, Amai, why does Rabbi Yochanan needs Rabbi Chanina to get him out of the Yisurim? He's the one who got out Rabbi Chia bar Abba. So the Gemara says, Amai, look him Rabbi Yochanan lenafshe. Rabbi Yochanan should get up himself out of the suffering. Amre lo en chavush matir atzmo mibet hasurim. There is a concept that somebody who was tied in jail, he cannot release himself from jail. He needs somebody else to release him. Even though Rabbi Yochanan was such a great man, to release other people, but himself he couldn't. Story. Rabbi Elazar Chalash. Very interesting story. Rabbi Yochanan was sick. Ale gabe Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan came to visit him. Chaza deha vekagani bebayit afel. He saw that the Rabbi Elazar is in a dark house. It's very dark over there. Gali eledare. Rabbi Yochanan exposed his hand or his foot. I think hand. Venafal nehora, and a light came. He's such a beautiful man. So from his hand was his arm. Was beautiful light out of his arm. The Gemara says, so suddenly Vayhior was light in the room because of the hand of Rabbi Yochanan. Chazye da kabachi Rabbi Elazar. Then he saw Rabbi Elazar start crying. Rabbi Elazar, why are you crying? Amar le, amai kabachit, why are you crying? So he didn't know why he was crying. So he thought he's crying because he's about to die. So he said, don't worry. If you cry because you didn't learn enough Torah, don't worry. We learn in the Mishnah, for learning Torah, either you learn a little bit, either you learn a lot. As long as you had kavanah to do the right thing, it's considered already as a good thing. So don't worry. Hashem doesn't ask you why you didn't learn a lot or more. You did your best. That's what Hashem is looking for. If because you were a poor guy, you had no food, what do you want? Not every person has the two shulchanot, also having been Talmid Chacham and also having money. If because of children, because you have no children, don't worry. I said Rabbi Yochanan, he experienced the same thing. Then grama dashira beri. That's the bone of my 10th son. So you have no reason to cry, Rabbi Elazar. Why are you crying? Omar le, you know why am I crying? Lehai shufra, for this beauty of your hand, who just gave us light, the bali be'afra kabachina, that eventually will be burned, decayed in the dirt when you're going to die. Amar le alda, vadai kabachit. On that, you're right, we have to cry. Ubachu tarvayu, and both of them were crying. So I didn't get a chance to see the Maharam, which you deserve better, but there is a much more deeper understanding for that. Why both of them crying because of the light in the hand that's going to be eventually decayed. Adeachi ve'achi, meanwhile, after they got relaxed from crying, Amar le, he told them, Chavivim alecha yisurim, says Rabbi Yochanan to Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Elazar, I do appreciate yisurim. Amar lo, lo en velo scharam. I don't want them, I don't want the reward. Amar le, av li yadach, give me your hand. Yav li yadei, he gave him his hand. Ve'ukmein, he got him out of the yisurim. Another story about suffering, but a little bit easier one. Ravuna תקיפו ל400 דני חמרה. He has 400 barrels of wine, and he got spoiled and he became vinegar. So, לגבי רב יהודה came to visit him to comfort him. This is like today, somebody who lost $10 million. So, לגבי רבי יהודה, אחוה דרב סלח חסידה ורבנן. So, רבי יהודה and רבנן came to comfort him. ואמרי לרב עדה ברדה ורבנן, and some said it was רב עדה רבנן and רבנן, ואמרו לי, they told him, they said, רבונה, לעין מר במילי, maybe you should look into your actions, what caused you to lose so much money that all of your wine became vinegar. אמר לו, מי חשידנה בעינחו? Are you suspecting me that I did something wrong? אמרו לי, ומי חשיד קודשה בריחו? Do you suspect God? דאבי דינה בלא דינה? That he does a judgment without judgment? Meaning he does things for no reason? אמר לו, okay, I got it. If anyone heard about me anything, if you ask me this question, that means that you know something about me. If anybody heard about me, Leima, tell me. Amud, they told him, Achi Shmiela, this is what we heard about you. Delo yaiv mar shabisha la'arisa, that you don't give the branches of the vineyard to the aris. Aris was the guy who used to work on a commission. He used to put all of the work, and he used to take a third of the income from the grapes or from the grain. So he said, I heard that, you're supposed to give him a third of the fruits, but in terms of the branches, he's supposed to get also a third of them, and you don't give him. Amar lehu, mi kashavik limidi minei? Does he leaves me anything? Hakaganiv lekulei, he steals so much from me that nothing left to give him. What do I need to give him the branches when he steals 80% of the grapes? You're right. However, this is what people said. Batar ganva ganu vetama taim. Somebody who steals from ganav, from a thief, he still have the flavor of stealing. You're taking away from him. By the end of the day, you take away. You're right, he doesn't deserve it, but that's a fine small action of stealing. You steal because he steals from you, but you are stealing also. Amar lo kabilna alai, okay, kibel alav. I'm taking upon myself the avin alei. I'm going to give him from now on the branches. Ike de amre was a miracle adar chala ve'ava chamra. The vinegar was a miracle, did the reverse and became back wine. Ike de amre Sat says iyakar chala ve'yizdaban bilmei chamra. Some said that it was a big need for vinegar at the time, and it was so expensive that it was sold the same amount as the vinegar. Tanya, Abba Binyamin Omer, על שתי דברים הייתי מצטער כל ימיי. On two things I was suffering, meaning I used to put effort all of my life. על תפילתי שתהיה לפני מיטתי, for me to pray in front of my bed, ועל מיטתי on my bed, שתהיה נתונה should be placed between צפון לדרום, between north to south. על תפילתי שתהיה לפני מיטתי, or my תפילה to be in front of my bed, the Gemara says, מה לפני מיטתי? What's in front of my bed? אם לפני מיטתי ממש, in front of my bed ממש, is impossible. ואומר רבי דאמר רב, ויתאם Sam says, רבי יהושע בן לוי says, מניין למתפלל שלא יהיה דבר חוצץ בינו לבין הקיר. I did not someone who prays shouldn't have a barrier between him to the wall. שנאמר, ויסב חזקיהו פניו אל הקיר והתפלל. When Chizkiyahu prayed, he turned his face to the wall. Shouldn't be any barrier between you to the wall. So it's impossible that he said that he was makpid the bed to be in front of him when it's davening, when it's something at a disadvantage. The Gemara says, Lo taima lifnei mitati. It don't say that he was makpid to have his tefillah in front of his bed. Rather, samuch lemitati. Meaning, right after he went to sleep on his bed, right before he went to sleep in his bed, he made sure to pray and not to do anything in between. The second thing was מקפיד, ועל מיטתי שתהיה נתונה בין צפון לדרום. On my bed it should be placed between north and south. Why it's so important? אמר רב חמא בר רב חנינא, אמר רבי יצחק. כל הנותן מיטתו בין צפון לדרום, anyone who put his bed between north to south, אב ילי בנים זכרים. He's going to have בנים זכרים, boys. איך הוא עושה את אליהו, שנאמר, וצפונך תמלא בצנם if you're going to be tzafon, you're going to be to the north, ישבעו בנים will be satisfied with boys, with children.
The head needs to be to the north?
It's the head supposed to be, but it doesn't say here where the head is supposed to be. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, there is machloket in the Shulchan Aruch, you bring out their opinion, it's got to be better east to west. So whatever you are,
it's better east to west?
Yeah, so whatever you are, technically you're on the right opinion. No, because you follow at least one of them. And somebody told me he was instructed by a Rav that every time, whenever he's with his wife, to change the position. I'm like, then you think about this Rav every time, whenever you're with your wife. What's wrong with you? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar says, "En ishto mapelet nefanim." If he's going to be north to south, his wife is not going to have miscarriage. Ktivacha utfunecha temale bitnam. The north will fill up their stomach. ותפיד atam, it said over there, וימלאו ימיה ללדת, והנה תומים בבטנה. Her days were full to give birth, and there were tomim, there were twins in her stomach, meaning there was a full days of pregnancy. Last part, Tanya בבנימין אומר, שניים שנכנסו להתפלל, two people who went to daven, וקדם אחד מהם להתפלל, one of them started, ולא המתין את חברו, he didn't wait for his friend, ויצא, and he left. He started quick and he left. טורפים לו תפילתו בפניו, they're going to mix the תפילה and throw it in front of his face. שנאמר, טורף נפשו באפו, למענך תעזוב הארץ. Because if you left the land, Hashem will טורף, will mix the תפילה and throw it in front of his face. ולא עוד, not only that, אלא שגורם לתפילה שתסתלק מישראל, because the שכינה to go away from עם ישראל, שנאמר, ויעתק צור ממקומו. The pasuk continued, the tzur left his place, ואין צור, who is צור? אלא הקדוש ברוך הוא. שנאמר, the pasuk said, צור ילדך תשי, צור is Hashem. So you shouldn't leave if your friend is davening, you gotta wait for him. And if you did wait for it, ואם המתין לו מה שכרו, what will be his reward? אמר רבי יוסי בר חנינא, זוכה לברכות הללו. He's going to be זוכה for the following ברכות. שנאמר, the pasuk says, לא הקשבת על מצוותיי, because that you listen to my mitzvot, you did chesed to your friend, you were waiting for him. ויהי כנהר שלומך, your shalom will be like a river. וצדקתך, your righteousness will be כגלי הים, like the waves of the ocean. ויהי כחול זרעך, and your descendants will be like sand, a lot of descendants. וצאצאי מאיך, and those are going to come out of your stomach, כמעות, like money. The pasuk continue, it's not here. לא יקרד ולא ישמש שמו מלפניו. His name will not going to be cut off, will be a long name in front of me. עד כאן today's learning. ברוך ה' לעולם, אמן.